Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi. Okay, this is where as you see is the title. Um Young Pharaoh Law. You see the title right there. So this is part one. Probably be other parts to it. Briefly, what I'll be touching on is Prophet Muhammad a pedophile? Do all Muslims subscribe to pedophilia? And what is the methodology towards hadith, and the different methods that various Muslim scholars or Muslims in general go towards the Quran and hadith. Um, this is going to be explicit because young Pharaoh Law, if anybody don't know him, he cusses a lot. So if you don't want to hear no cussing, this ain't the video for you. But I'm going to be refuting him with Islamic history. We're going to go into find out what Islam considers maturity. Also, when is a person mature? Is it just when they reach their physical puberty, or do they have to be mentally mature also? Meaning, what I'm saying, mature in psychologically mature, meaning past puberty. Also, you're going to see if all scholars support such a viewpoint that Prophet Muhammad Sallallahu was a pedophile or married Aisha 6 and 9. Is that hadith even authentic to some scholars? And what are the methods towards that? So we'll first hear what young Pharaoh says. And on a certain thing, I'll probably let him speak only the whole thing, but I'll probably be answering in between his statements. And I'll probably already disprove him with one statement that he says, and I'll probably go in. But definitely, after probably a couple of his statements, I'll expound. First, I'll let a couple scholars speak because he threw some. Only reason why I'm putting that up is because he himself let a couple Arabs that he termed in the Middle East speak, and he took them as they speak for the whole of the Muslims, while he does not understand that there are different methods and different type of schools in Islam. And schools means different methods that Muslim goes towards the Quran and Hadith to arrive at if a saying or an alleged saying of the Prophet is authentic. So I'll also be putting up some scholars too that will say the opposite of what young Pharaoh people he's put up. But we're gonna go ahead and listen to what he's got to say. Quick.
Mary is
okay.
All right, family, we live. I'm pouring my water, and we finna jump right into this. All right? We finna jump right into this.
Jump right in there, then.
How y'all doing tonight? It's finna go down, straight up. Moderators, moderate. Moderators, moderate. All right? And so, I'm going to go head diving in. Head diving in first. Okay? All right, I see my moderators in the building. All right, cool. Give me 1 sec, family. Let the team assemble. All right? All my moderators in the building.
Fast forward.
The body of Islam.
Okay.
Now,
okay.
Ask me.
Okay.
That see my mom. I'm gonna go head diving in. Head diving in first. Okay? All right, I see my moderators in the building. All right, cool. Give me 1 sec, family. Let the team assemble. All right? All my moderators in the building. Somebody said back the glasses out. Don't worry, they coming out for this one. They right here. I got them. Had to get them for this one. Okay? Excuse me. Had to get the specs for this one. All right. I see my moderators in the building. It's time to go. Now, bitch, I won't be playing no games with you today. At all. At all. And so, jumping straight into this, I have to give y'all the prelude. So, we're not going to speak on the Catholic Church.
Pause real quick. The reason why he's saying that is because I made a video rebuttaling him about the Catholic Church creating Islam. So when I made that video, I guess that, that dismantled that completely. And that's not no guess. That dismantled that completely. Then he responds with this. So the next topic's pedophilia. Okay, let's go.
Priests, the fatherhood, the Pope, and niggas just think they gonna gloss over Islam, the Imam, and the mosque. That's not gonna fly with me. And so we have to deal with problems chronologically, okay? Because if not, you're not gonna never get to the root of the issue. Now, the reason I say that is to say this. Islam enslaved black people far longer and way before Europeans ever did. Now, is this to get European slavery off the hook? No, it's not. But the point I'm trying to make is I can't understand why people praise Islam like it didn't pop off the slave trade. There would be no slave trading around the world had it not been for Arabs. Arabs started slavery. White people wouldn't even know what slavery was if it was not for Arabs. Let's get that fact clear, okay? So I'm tired of motherfuckers always picking and choosing.
Okay, come on, man. Come on, get to the side.
Blame and battle with. Now, am I making this video? I got to get my disclaimer here. This video here is not to inspire hate.
Oh, man. Skip all that.
Fuck you, too. So
okay.
Then we have pedophiles. Then we have Allah was a pedophile. To have sex. Thinking about having sex. There's a criteria of sex and eroticism.
Okay.
Well, ask me.
Okay.
Masonry.
Excuse me.
Race or group of people.
Okay.
At all.
I'll just let him talk.
This video right here is based off personal research and the views and opinions of myself. So please don't come on here complaining about, your personal little subscription in your life that nobody cares about. Now that I've given my disclaimer, okay, we can go all the way in.
Yes, come on.
Now,
come on.
Because before I start showing facts, I got to continue to lay my groundwork. I have already showed you how the same people wrote all of these religious books. It's why they say all the same thing. If you don't know about Freemasonry, you need to study it. Now, why is this important? I already DDT'd and German suplex Islam sometime ago, a couple months ago. I don't even remember. So we already bodied Islam. Now what we're doing is we doubling back to as I said earlier on my Instagram, it's like we chopped the head off, put the head on a stick. Now we got to burn the body. So tonight what we're doing is we burning the body of Islam. Now, we want to talk about pedophilia and homosexuality. Because I went in on this on Christianity. I went in on this on Judaism. Now we got to bring it up on Islam. Because with all of these scandals coming out in the news and all of these Catholic priests taking all of this fire about being pedophiles, nobody never want to talk about Islamic pedophiles and homosexuality in the Islamic world. So tonight we're going to show and prove that, and we're going to talk about that, and we're going to burn the body of Islam. Now, first of all, we need to establish, okay, facts here. Because we don't slander and we don't make shit up. So first we need to establish, okay, family? Fact. Does Islam propagate pedophilia? That's the question. That's the $1 million motherfucking question, right?
So his question, does Islam propagate pedophilia? Let's go.
Here, the answer is hell yes.
Okay.
Now, if you don't know anything about Islam,
okay,
let me tell you the core thing you need to know. They believe that some illiterate nigga named Muhammad wrote that piece of shit Quran. Now, Muhammad was illiterate. I have to say that again, okay? Muhammad was illiterate. word Quran means to recite. I have a hard time believing that a illiterate nigga wrote the Quran, okay? But on top of that, according to Islamic scholarship, okay?
Okay, stop. Before he says what he's going to say, the key word here is according to Islamic scholarship. Now understand, he just made a general and blanket statement with no distinction. So that means this man knows what he's talking about when he says what he just said. According to Islamic scholarship. Watch this. We're going to see if all of Islamic scholarship accepts that Prophet Muhammad was a pedophile. Let's continue.
Not factual historical scholarship, but Islamic scholarship in their little religional cult, okay, that they got going on over there in the Islamic world. They believe, and it's confirmed by the Quran, that Muhammad married his wife, Aisha, at 9 years the fuck old. 9 fucking years old. Now, niggas try to justify this to say, oh, he didn't have sex with her till she was 11. Nigga, you a grown-ass man. Now,
okay, stop. So he says that it's backed by the Quran, which is not. But he says it's backed by the Quran. Later on, he's going to give the verse about the, little boys, supposed to be in paradise, like scattered pearls. And he says that's male, what is it? Pedophilia. He says that's male pedophilia. Okay. But notice what he just said. He said that the scholars of Islam, they support pedophilia, right? And he says, according to Islamic doctrine, Prophet Muhammad married his wife six or nine. There are some Muslims that say that, but where he's wrong at is there are scholars that have not accepted that. There were scholars in early Islamic history, because that's what we're going to go through is Islamic history also, in the methods towards the Quran and Hadith. He's going to quote from Bukhari. Well, before we even go into it, I'm going to go ahead and say that Imam Abu Hanifa, which was a top scholar, and other scholars like Imam Malik too, but definitely I know of Imam Abu Hanifa, whose method towards the Quran and Hadith was Quran and rationality, had rejected many hadiths, especially the ones dealing with the 6 and 9, or being able to marry little girls and stuff like that, grown people being able to marry little girls, that had been rejected in the 2nd century of Islam. Okay. And Imam Abu Hanifa, who is the founder of one of the first Muslim schools, by school meaning method, towards the hadith, had rejected that early on. And then it was later on, 140 years later, that Bukhari decided to put all those hadiths that had been rejected by Imam Abu Hanifa and others put it into his compilation work called Bukhari. Okay. Because in his method that he used, he determined that because of the chain of narrators going back, he determined that that was authentic enough for him to put into his books. And so some Muslims relied on that. But we'll see that plus Imam Malik's method towards the Hadith too, and showing the principle of intellect inside the Quran and rationality inside the Quran, and that being the basis for Islamic law in itself. Okay, because young Pharaoh is going to be bringing up Islamic law too on that issue. But we're going to let him speak a little bit longer, and then we're going to go back, and then I'm going to go ahead and go in. All right.
Justification for the sexual intercourse between Muhammad and Aisha is the same justification that all pedophiles and weirdos use, which is backed up by the Torah, the Bible, and once again.
Now, as you know, before we continue, as you know, I already said last time, we don't accept no pedophilia. You know what I'm saying? I personally don't accept no pedophilia. And, any brother, I've always looked at people weird upside the head, and even got into a couple issues, you know what I'm saying, over a person really adhering to is permissible to marry, you know, either whether it be 6 or 9 or just that narration in itself. I've always, you know, basically have rejected that, you know, so it's not true what he says that all Muslims, accept, you know, that type of thing. And it has nothing to do whatsoever that, because we're in the modern age either. Has nothing to do with that, because even in the 2nd century of Islam, okay, even in the 2nd century with the methods towards a hadith, that had been rejected. So, I mean, and it is part of Islamic law. Okay, that is a concept towards of one of the methodologies in Islamic law. And on that issue, I agree with that method towards that issue. So, I'm gonna go ahead and let them talk a little bit, and then I'm gonna go ahead and go in. I might just, well, I'll let them go.
The Quran, and that's the false science of a woman being ready for sexual intercourse when she gets her period. That's not a fact. Your menstruational cycle is not totally activational towards the chemicals that need to be released in the body, which produce sexual urges and tendencies. Okay, puberty takes place, and sexual sexual chemistry takes place in the body when kisspeptin is released in the brain. Okay, a woman getting on her period is not totally invoking sexual psychological states of existence. You can get on your period at 9 years old. That does not mean you're thinking about having sex. That does not mean you get aroused.
That's true.
That does not mean psychologically you understand and digest the subjects and criteria of sex and eroticism to where your body biochemically responds to itself, which tells you to become moist down there and activate down there for sexual penetration. The body responding to sexual inclination is totally different than the body going into a state of existence to sexually reproduce. What the fuck is wrong with y'all? And so that being said, children do not think about sex. What are you talking about? Only time children think about sex is when you do something to them inappropriately sexually, or when you put those thoughts in their fucking head. And so once again, we have pedophiles writing these fucking books, okay? And if you believe in Allah, fuck Allah. Allah was a pedophile. Yeah, I said it. And so that being said, any nigga that would write a book talking about it's okay to marry or to have sex with a girl when she get on her fucking menstrual period, or you could marry a girl at 9 years old or 6 years old, whatever age you niggas want to debate about, fuck that nigga. And if that's your God, fuck your God. Fuck you too. So with that being said, let's go into it, because we have to establish pedophilia, as I stated. Now, Muhammad, okay, is married to Aisha at 9 years old, has sex with her at allegedly 11 years old. So we can see that the followers of the Quran, the believers of Muhammad, have no problem with a grown-ass man marrying a minor. Okay? Now, I have to share my screen for a second.
Yeah, go ahead and share that.
I have to give y'all the synopsis before I go in. I got to lay my groundwork. Now, let me play this clip.
Okay.
Of an actual Muslim admitting to pedophilia. Okay? Let me play this clip. We're going to watch this a little bit. Let me run this back. Here we go. This from 2008. So I don't want nobody talking about no motherfucking, oh.
We'll come back to that, you know, because I got some videos too. We'll come back to that. That's crazy. You know, man, I got a little cold too. So we're going to go ahead. I'm going to go ahead. Okay, I'll let him say it enough. So his premise, let's show real quick. Okay. Problem. You see these principles right here? And later on, we're going to get into, see, you can't just read a hadith. There's a method. There's some Muslims that think, you know, you can, predominantly the al-hadith movement and, you know, some Salafis, you know what I'm saying? They have the method. They could read a hadith, and if they trace the chain of narrators back, then that's Sahih, and their definition Sahih means that it's true. The statement is true. But in other methods, Sahih doesn't mean the statement is true. In other methodologies towards a hadith, Sahih just means that it is sound. It is a sound connection of narrators going back. That's all it means. It don't mean that the statement is true. And so therefore a Sahih hadith can actually be rejected. So right here, those are principles. But first, before we get on that, let's go over here. Okay. Let's go ahead and dispel something real quick right off the bat. All right. Hold on. Bear with me for a second. All right. Okay. So first thing I want to show you real quick. Hadith masters, such as Ibn Hajar and historians such as Imam Tabari, also a hadith master, Faqih, though his school is currently lost, alike, but they knew and articulated clearly that being Sahih did not mean true, but merely that the chain was correct, meaning the individual who told the individual who told the individual, that is what was correct. But it says the content and meaning could be well rejected. Could be rejected as it is in this case. But persons nowadays suitably misled by the Salafi movement could be incited, as Ibn Taymiyyah was, to mistake its Sahih status for its acceptability. Okay, so that's just something I want to show. But first, before a person say, well, you can't use rationalism in Islam and it's not part of Islamic law, we want to establish that there was a movement that began called Ahlul Ray. Now, what is Ahlul Ray? Ahlul Ray advocates Ray, common sense or rational discretion, were an early Islamic movement advocating the use of reasoning to arrive at legal decisions. They were one of the main three groups debating sources of Islamic law. In the 2nd century of Islam, the two other being Ahlul Kalam, speculative theologians, and Ashab al-Hadith, the partisans of Hadith who eventually prevailed. Now, prevailed meaning that towards the later centuries, now everybody, all these groups use Hadith. That's not what it's saying. Partisans of Hadith means that for the main part, they rely more on narration as far as the narrators, the chain of narrators. If that lines up and if that's sound, then to them, the statement is true for the main part. Okay. Now, right here, those that are not Ahlul Hadith, but are Ahlul Ra'i, right here, is proponents which recluded many early jurists of the Hanafi and Maliki schools, use the term Ra'i to refer to sound and considered reasoning, such as qiyas, analogical deduction. Their opponents, you see this? There's two different schools in early Islam. Okay. This is going to be very important to know because the people that young Pharaoh has up there, right? They fall in the category of Ahlul Hadith movement. They're not really up under the Ahlul Ra'i movement. Okay. And those are two different methods towards the Hadith. All right. So it says the Ahlul Hadith movement held that the Quran authentic Hadith, meaning the Hadiths they considered what was authentic, were the only admissible sources of Islamic law and objected to any use of Ra'i or reasoning in jurisprudence, whether in the form of qiyas, istislah, consideration of public interest, or hiyal, legal subterfuge. All right. And these are just talking about the difference. It says Daniel D.W. Brown, Ahlul Ra'i thought hadith should sometimes be subject to overriding principles such as continuous practice of the Ummah and general principles of equity, which better represent the spirit of the Prophet of Islam. All right. Now, we ain't going to dwell too much on the Wikipedia. All right. I just want to establish some. So here's one of the things I'll be referencing. All right. Hanafi principles of testing Hadith. All right. And also, I'll be also utilizing Malik Medina, Islamic reasoning in the formative period. So that means the beginning of Islamic law. And this is towards the Hadith. So, the area of righteousness, That's something to do with customs and cultures. Y'all should gonna find out how come some African Muslims, right? How come some Muslims can keep their culture? You know, you go to Africa and they practice certain ways, and other Muslims like, man, how do they, still practicing that? This and that. You're also gonna find out under the category of righteousness. We're not there yet. Okay, right here. Okay, so right here. This is from asharisassemble.com. You'll be seeing me referring to many different sites and I went through many different sects of Muslims. You know what I'm saying? There's a couple in here from Shia. There's a couple from Sunni Hanafis, Sunni Malikis. It all coincides together. This is from the Ashari Assembly. So anybody knows me, hold on. Before I continue, anybody knows me, I'm a non-sectarian Muslim. So I don't distinguish the sects. I just make sure it all lines up together. Okay. So ashariassemble.com, quote, they say, there are many different terminologies used in the grading of hadith. Now listen to this. They vary according to which method one follows. All of the groups have different methods and varied terms. Now here's the exceptions. For example, the Malikis do not accept hadith that are sahih that clash with the practice and habits of Medina at the time of Imam Malik. Meaning the Malik method towards hadith is that because Medina was the city of the Prophet and they had customs that were established called amal or action, they would go there. Any hadith that was narrated away from there, they would judge based upon the practice of Medina because that was the Prophet's city that lived out the Sunnah, or what they called amal, which means actions of the Prophet Muhammad. So if they went to Medina and they say thousands and thousands and thousands of companions and family of the Prophet Muhammad doing a certain thing, and then a person narrated a hadith somewhere else, but they try to determine that the chain is sahih, the Maliki community in Medina will reject it or put it to the side and say this is not correct, because Imam Malik and the school of Medina and the Prophet city does not do this as a customary practice. So therefore that hadith is rejected. Okay. That was one method. Now, okay. So, but clash with practice and habit of Medina at the time of Malik. Hanafis do not take Sahih hadith if they clash with Quran or rationality. So that's more what I subscribe to. I subscribe to that method more so towards a hadith. Okay. With a mixture of what Imam Malik has too. Right. So what I'm showing here is the different methods towards hadith, because merely getting up there saying this is a Sahih hadith inside Bukhari that Bukhari considered Sahih. Well, first of all, which method did Bukhari go by to determine that? He went more with the Shafi, and you'll see that down here. Hanafis do not take Sahih hadith if they clash with Quran or rationality. Shafi will take them if they meet his 5 conditions, which are similar to those of Imam Bukhari. Okay? That's important, because that's what Imam Bukhari used mainly, was more of the Shafi method. But an important third grade hadith is mashhur, famous. This again is another narration type and has different definition in different groups. That's another thing we got to understand also. The word sahih could be, it means something different in different groups, in different methods. So this scholar over here saying it's sahih from one method that he used of one of these. Another scholar in another method may deem it that that's not sahih, according to the method that he used somewhere else. So merely getting up there and saying that this is from Bukhari and it's sahih, well, according to which scholars? Young Pharaoh in this video said Islamic scholars consider it's okay for pedophilia, and that Prophet Muhammad married Aisha 6 and 9, right? And consummated 11. Some say 6 and then 9 and then 11. And, there's other people that say 18, 19, 20, 21. I mean, the fact that it has so many different differences, this should tell you itself that there's something wrong. But in any case, okay. So I just want to show you that. Now, let's see. I want to go to, okay. First I want to establish how old this is. Okay, that's what I want to do. I want to establish. Hold on for a second. Okay, fold those back up again. All right, I have a lot of stuff, so excuse me real quick. Go through my Islamic history. Okay. All right. Boom. All right. So my first point that I want to establish is that it is acceptable in Islamic law to use intellect, rationalizations against the hadith, because some people don't believe that. You see, and so I don't want nobody saying, especially people like young Pharaoh and them Christians who are anti-Islam out there, and others who are anti-Islam, that, oh, you're just saying that because you're in the modern times, and you can't just, use rationality against the text, although the Quran is very clearly established the principle itself that was later used as a principle towards Islamic law was aql, which is called reason. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says inside the Quran, verily the worst living creatures in the sight of Allah are those who do not use reason. Okay, this is one of the ayats that was used among others to come up with the principles of evaluation towards hadith. Number one, is it against intellect? Number two, is it against nature? Number three, is it against the Quran? Number four, is it against contrary to history, meaning true established history? Is it against some event or common sense? Okay. Now, having sex with a 9-year-old, marrying a 9-year-old, which one of these you think it go against? If we go to psychology right now and child development, do you think a child is intelligent enough, or the nature, a natural in their psychological makeup, are they able to handle the responsibilities of being married? The answer is no. So clearly, but we're gonna continue though. I had this lined up too. Okay, I had different things, different subjects. All right, so we'll go like this. I want to establish the this. One second. All right, hold up. All right, so this is what we're doing. Marriage contract. Okay. So we already established Al-Hurrai, that was one of the, okay, so I did establish that Al-Hurrai was one of the schools. Okay. Okay, we're going to go over here real quick because this is the focus. All right. Hanafi. All right. Do we have justification, use rationality? Is that a modern practice that Muslims are trying to come up with, or was this established in early Islamic law? The Hanafi school is one of the 4 religious Sunni Islamic schools of jurisprudence. It is named after scholar Abu Hanifa Numan Thabit, a tabi, which means he talked to the companions of the Prophet. He talked to a companion of prophets. He learned specific companions, if I remember correctly, Abdullah ibn Masud and Umar. And then from the Prophet Muhammad's family, he learned from Imam Jafar Sadiq and also others. Okay. Whose legal views are preserved primarily by 2 most important disciples. Okay. The other major schools in Sharia in Sunni Islam are Maliki, Shafi, and Hanbali. Okay. Let's see real quick. Hanafi is the fiqh with the largest number of followers among Sunni Muslims. Okay. Real quick. Okay. Mom and narrate. Okay. Almost. Okay. All right. So we're going to get off the Wikipedia. I got my own stuff. Okay. Right there. Foundational text. Okay. Hold on. Foundational text. Hanafi Madhab, credit to Abu Hanifa and his students, Abu Yusuf, Shabani, Fiqh Akbar, Theological Book of Jurisprudence. Okay, Kitab Athar. I have Kitab Athar. Okay, so I just wanted to establish that it's okay to do rationality as a part of Islamic law. So a person cannot say it's not. And also, you know, show it from there. So we're going to go over here. All right. We're also going to be touching on maturity. So, and the concept of science. Listen. Okay. Here's 9. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says inside the Quran, and he lays abomination upon those who do not reason. Okay. Bring your proof of what you say is truthful. So clearly reason, aql, right? That right there is a part of Islamic law. And is one of the methods that's used. All right. Rationalism. Following your desires. Now, if you are just trying to follow your desires only, you know what I'm saying? That's not the same as rationalism according to Islamic understanding, right? Your rationalism has to be objective. Your rationalism has to be allowing Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to guide you. It can't be, oh, you know, I want it to be this, so it's going to be that. No, it's not that. So the Quran distinguishes between following your self-desires from just mere rationalism. Okay? All right, so now let's go on. I'm gonna go ahead and go do my platform. Then what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna go ahead and let his video play. Then I'm gonna play the scholars that against the so-called scholars that he got up. All right, so let me go back right here. All right, let me go right here. So the first thing I want to do is, you see inside the Quran, will you not use your intellect? So when we come up on a hadith, let's do like this. Let's do this right off the back. All right. Okay, let's begin right here. In the yellow. Now this is after fabrications of hadith. It says the methodology of the school of Abu Hanifa also gave importance to the intellect and rational thought. This differed with the school of Muhaddithin, which was on the opposite end of spectrum and believed that any conflict with intellect and text could only occur due to deficiency in the brain, and therefore, which confronted with this situation, the intellect must be switched off. So basically, if you had a hadith or you had anything like that, this is an early period. And they sort of changed it as time went on a little bit, you know. But in the early formulation period of Islamic law, Ahlul Hadith movement or Muhaddithin, once they got a hadith and there was a chain of narrators, there was no such thing as reason or rationality at all. It don't matter what the text say, you know, regardless of how ridiculous a text may be, like monkeys stoning each other. You see, they would accept that hadith because the chain goes all the way back, okay, of narrators, right? But just because it goes all the way back doesn't necessarily mean that the prophet actually said that, though. See? Okay. So it says, Imam Abu Hanifa thus rejected many hadith as he felt they were not authentic. Many of these hadith, I'm going to put right here. My phone is going in. Maybe it's the brightness. Many of these hadith later formed part of the collections of Bukhari and others. Now, this is from the book called Hanafi Principle Towards Hadith. Okay, so basically, right there, you're seeing the hadiths, which are ahad, which means singly narrated hadiths. Most of those ended up in Bukhari. There's a terminology in hadith, Islamic law terminology called ahad, which are solitary hadiths. Okay, a lot of them ended up in Bukhari and Muslim. Right, the same ones that like the narration of 6 and 9 and all that, those type of hadiths, those ended up in Bukhari. All right. It was Ibn Hajar, actually. Ibn Hajar, who was the one that got Bukhari more known among the Muslims. You know, Ibn Hajar, you know, saying is the one is really responsible for pushing that Bukhari later. All right. But as you see, So those hadith were rejected. Okay. It's this book right here. That's my fist right there. So, okay, Abu Hanifa's position. Now remember, the reason why I'm just bringing up Abu Hanifa is because he's an Islamic scholar. He's early. It's the first, actually Sunni, basically the first Sunni school that was established towards hadith. Okay, that's why I'm bringing up, because young Pharaoh in this video said Islamic scholarship accepts the 6 and 9 narration, right, and pedophilia. So let's see what Imam Abu Hanifa says, what is narrated. Imam Abu Hanifa robustly disagreed with this position, argued that the age of maturity for both males and females, in fact, is 18. See that, 18? Imam Abu Hanifa's position was based on developmental psychology as adjusted for the child's locality and culture. His reasoning was that in different cultures and societies, people mature in different rates. The age of 18 was based on his local area, Kufa, in present-day Iraq, during the 8th century. So this is in the 8th century. So Islamic law in the 8th century held that you was not mature until 18. One of the methods of Islamic law, I should say, particularly the Imam Abu Hanifa's school. So clearly you already know then by that he rejected the Prophet married Aisha at 69. We just got to reading where he rejected many hadith, and many of them ended up in Bukhari and Muslim and other books. So if Imam Abu Hanifa, who is an Islamic jurist, knows hadith and is rejecting certain hadiths as weak, is saying that 18 is maturity, clearly then he rejected the 6 and 9 narration. So young Pharaoh Law don't know what he's talking about. All right. So that's not the only reason why. It's just because of locality and stuff like that. We got it inside the Quran why too. The main point was maturity is based on development of the brain. Once the brain has met minimum threshold of adulthood, a person is mature. The mature person under Islamic law is responsible for their actions, and therefore, according to Imam Abu Hanifa, the fact that a person exhibits external signs such as the onset of puberty is irrelevant. Now, you see, just because you come into puberty, it doesn't mean that you're mature, right? And therefore eligible for marriage. So just like young Pharaoh was sitting there saying something about the psychology, this fool don't even know that in Islamic text, okay, in Islamic case law, okay, that we already have that. Secondly, I want to point something out to any of y'all out there listening. You have never read a hadith, even if we're going just strictly into hadith. You've never read a hadith where the companions of the Prophet or the family of the Prophet married somebody as a practice, as a sunnah. You never read anything where they married somebody 6 and 9. Never. I've never read. I've read many hadiths, Shia, Sunni, Ibadi. I've read many hadiths. I've never read where the Sahaba or the Salaf. I never read where the Ahlul Bayt or the family of the Prophet married somebody at 6 and 9. If the Prophet did it, then you understand that people say that's a sunnah and that's a practice. So why would not his immediate followers follow that in suit? You should see everybody, a whole bunch of people marrying 6 and 9. Something like that, right? So, I mean, regardless of that, though, we see that early in Islamic law, okay, that maturity is not just because you reach puberty. Keep on. The onset of puberty is irrelevant. Rather, the person needs to be able to understand, analyze, decipher information before they're able to be responsible for their actions. Right? Therefore, in some societies, the age of maturity could be 18, whereas in others, it could be 16 or even higher than 18. Okay? So, if you're interested, there's the book. Principles of Testing Hadith. So, I didn't even bring most of it. Now, Okay, that's talking about Ibn Hajar. Okay. So let's go right here. Let's go right here. Then we're gonna go in the Quran and about maturity in the Quran. That's what we're gonna start. So I established the principle of intellect, okay, and reasoning and rationality. We established the principle maturity. We're gonna establish the principle of maturity in a second. But okay. Now we know we've been creating the different tribes and nation. Okay, well, I'll go there real quick. Islamic law. Okay. You know how we have our own cultural practices, right? Well, you know, in Islamic law, according to both Muhaddithin and Hanafis, going against customary cultural practices, a person is not fulfilling the conditions of righteousness. So these are points in Islamic law. So the only reason why I'm saying that is because even in the culture that we're in, like we over here in the West, over here, the culture over here, the customs over here is what? What's maturity over here? Right? So even in the section of righteousness right here, see that? Imam Shafi, the Hanafis, you see that? Hanafis? Go a little closer. According to both Muhaddithin and Hanafis, going against customary cultural practices, okay, means if you live in a country where, for instance, a part of your culture, everybody wears shoes and walking barefoot is considered bad manners within your community, then although in Islam, meaning there's no specific ruling in the Quran really, it's permissible to walk around barefooted. But we also know the Quran also talk about your neighbor and the rights of your neighbor and offending your neighbor and and who you live around and stuff like that. Right? We know that too. So it says on that basis, it says then although in Islam walking permissible, as you are going against acceptable customary practices, in effect, needlessly acting as an agitator in society. Right? I hate what's going in and out. Fulfilling the criteria, right? Okay, you're going against the fulfilling the criteria of righteousness. In fact, the Hanafi school goes so far as to make local custom. This is early, because you got to understand this is early Islamic law that we're dealing with here. So this would have been the concept, right, of early Islamic law. In fact, the Hanafi school goes so far as to I should say school, I mean method. I should put method there. The Hanafi method of law goes as far as to make local custom and culture a source of Islamic law. Let it clear. A source of Islamic law, as per the verse of the Quran. Okay, some of the scholars took this advice very seriously, even arguing that what is considered modest or Islamic dress can vary from place to place. So basically what we're looking at here is even your customs, like us living in the United States or Britain or somewhere, or us, even those of us who are on Pan-Africanism, if that's your culture, custom and culture, you see, as long as they don't completely reject, go against Tawheed, you can accept your custom and culture, and your custom and culture, according to the Hanafi method of Islamic law, is actually Islamicized. Maybe you're an Israelite or Hebrew Israelite. That's your culture or custom. To be an Hebrew Israelite in the practice of customs is Islamicized. You see what I'm saying? According to the Hanafi method of Islamic law, right? Over here in the West, if you're not supposed to marry 16, 18, whatever age you're supposed to wait, then that is the custom of the culture that you're in. That law is Islamicized, right? Because there's plenty of times where the Prophet, when it was against violating the neighbor, making your neighbors mad, doing wrong to the city, causing corruption in the city, doing doom in the city, doing wrong, to be a person, that's causing fitna. You see what I'm saying? The Quran is definitely against fitna. You see what I'm saying? So it's about peace. So here's what we're establishing is that what he thinks Islamic law is not what he thinks Islamic law is. That is a specific school that propagates the certain way that young Pharaoh is coming at it, and that is not the way and methodology of all Muslims, nor can anybody push that on all Muslims and say all Muslims must go by that. Who are you? All right. So let's go on. Okay. Okay. So this is from Malik and Medina. Now we that's my fist there again. We doing text law right here. We doing actual law right here. Cause he want to bring up scholars in Islamic law. Okay. Just cause he read a funky little hadith and some people just go by that and just gung ho with it. You see, that's not how that go. You know what I'm saying? That's not how that go. So this is from Malika Medina, Islamic Legal Reasoning, Informative Period. Okay. So this is what I have to say on that. Hold on. That's the other book. There it is. All right. Oh, by the way, if somebody say that I ain't got it, here, hold on for a second. Hold on. Because somebody actually says something before you know, we're gonna have to show it to you later on. All right. All right. So this is in the area of this page 137. I should have been saying the page because see an overview of Malik's legal reason. Now we're to the Maliki method. Okay, the habits of Medina. All right. So Malik and regional customs. Let it clear up real quick. Malik and regional customs. Regional customs and conventions, al-urf and al-ada, constitute a valid legal okay, there go. Legal reference and source of law. SubhanAllah. Bear with me. It's blinking out. Probably of the brightness or something. All right. Legal reference and source of law in all Sunni schools. They play an especially significant role in the Maliki and Hanafi methods or traditions. All right. Muhammad Abu Zahra SubhanAllah. Shaitan. Okay. All right. Reflects his, okay. Muhammad Abu Zahra, the prominence of regional customs in Malik's reasoning reflects his attention in the general good. Okay. Hold on for a second. Let me change the brightness of this because this thing messing up. Hold up. Hold on for a second. We're going to go over here because maybe that's the problem. All right. Maybe that's what it needed, right? Okay. Hopefully that's it. Hope it ain't too bright. All right. Boom. Okay. Okay, alhamdulillah. All right. MashaAllah. Okay, so Malik and regional customs. Regional customs and conventions, al-urf and al-ada, constitute a valid legal reference and source of law in Sunni schools. They play an especially significant role in the Maliki and Hanafi traditions. According to Muhammad Abu Zahra, the promise of regional customs in Malik's reasoning reflects his attention to the general good, maslaha. Since sound customs as a rule have strong links with aspiration, needs, necessities of people in the regions where they live, as will be shown in Malik's use of discretion, istihsan, is sometimes predicated on local customs. He also applies discretion on the basis of general good. So that's also an aspect in Islamic law. You see, what is your culture? What is your customs? The general good of your culture and customs where you live at. Because you got to understand, if you're causing, as long as it's good, like it said, sound, right? If you're going against that, that's called causing fitna, right? So, for example, I as people know, I identify my culture, you know what I'm saying? You know, as a mixture of things, different stages, but predominantly New African. You know, there's an Israelite aspect to it and everything. So if you're a New African and you're proclaiming you're a New African, or which is also part of Aboriginal too, because part of our families grew up here too, right? What is our custom and what is our culture, right? Some of us also include the Israelite side of the family, right? So what is our custom? What is our culture? So again, according to the Malik method, under maslaha, the general good, this type of custom is Islamicized. So when we get to over here in the culture of America and we say the age of maturity is 17, the age is 18, the age is whatever is the customary practices. You see what I'm saying? That is an Islamized or Islamic understanding of law. That actually becomes a part of Sharia. Okay. Now, in the Shia method, I didn't put the Shia method real right here. One day I'm going to do that too. But in the Shia method, it's a little different. It's just the Quran, the narrations of Al-Bayt. But then if there's no statement on that, after that is your custom. You see what I'm saying? Your custom necessarily doesn't have to be Islamicized per se, right? But it's just your custom. But it is still halal for you to practice it. So, I mean, the more of the Hanafi and the Maliki method tends to Islamicize what your custom is, whereas some of the Shia methods don't. You know, they just say it's okay for you to have your own customs, right? So anyway, we're gonna keep moving on. So we got customs down, we got culture down, Islamicized. It's part of Islamic law. We got the earliest Hanafi school stating that the age of maturity was 18. That's way back in the 2nd century of Islam. Let's go back to that. That's way back. Okay, hold on. You don't know nothing about no Islamic law. Okay. So we already established Ray, Al-Hadith, the two different methods, the movements. Okay. Now, people who belong to the Al-Hadith movement, many of them will say the narration of 6 and 9 is acceptable. You see what I'm saying? But those who belong more of the Al-Ray understanding, we don't accept that. We don't go with that. That's not for us. You see what I'm saying? And there's a long history between blindly following a hadith that's just narrated just because there's a chain of narrators. Okay? Al-Ray understanding and the Hanafi, especially the Hanafi understanding, that means absolutely basically nothing. You still got to come about the text. What does the text say? If the text is against the Quran, it's not accepted. You get that out of here. We don't care if the chain is sound. Oh, these narrators, you know, the chain goes all the way back. The isnad goes all the way back. So it's sound. Sound to in the Hanafi methodology means it's just sound in its chain that these people talk to each other. That's all that means. It don't mean that the Prophet actually said it. All right. So, okay. Right here. Now, Ibn Hajar Asqalani, he's the one that made Bukhari famous. He's a famous pioneer of Shafi Mustala, right? Mustala means method of hadith. He is also one of the main reasons for Sahih al-Bukhari currently holding the position of second most valued book in Islam, or I should say, according to some in Islam. His commentary on Bukhari's collection is considered the most authoritative amongst the scholars of hadith. When they say scholars of hadith, they mean the hadith school, meaning those who accept the concept that the narrator is going all the way back. It determined that to be sahih means that the prophet basically said it. Okay. Because everybody accept hadith. Right. It's just your method, how you go towards it. But in this commentary, he is not only accepts this hadith, he compounds the problem by stating that the hadith was only rejected by heretics. See, that's where that mentality comes from. Now we know the Hanafi school had rejected those hadiths, and that Bukhari had put those hadiths inside his Sahih. See, so there, you know, in Islamic history, yeah, they got a little bit of banging going on. You know, they got a little bit of school banging in sometime in history going on, which they shouldn't have. You know, but it happened. You know, again, I'm gonna read this one more time before I go on. The methodology, and that's from this book, Hanafi Principles, Text and Hadith. It says right here, the methodology of the school of Abu Hanifa also gave importance to the intellect and rational thought. This differed. Oh, my phone doing that again. With the school of Muhaddithin, which was on the opposite end of the spectrum and believed that any conflict with the intellect and text could only occur due to a deficiency in the brain. And therefore, when confronted with this situation, the intellect must be switched off. Meaning that we got the hadith, we got the chain of narrators. I don't want subhanallah, key, don't argue with me. Meaning that intellect switched off. Right? Imam Abu Hanifa so rejected many hadiths as he felt they were not authentic. Many of these hadiths later formed part of the collections of Bukhari and others. All right. So, let's go down here real quick. All right. Let's get this established. So, Islam accepts science, right? And what we got to understand is that, so now, as you can see right here, Tafsir verse, we shall show them our signs in the universe in their own self until it becomes manifest to them that the Quran is the truth. Now, some put the in parentheses Quran there, but in actuality don't say that, and that's okay. It's okay both ways. The point is that we established the principle of rationality with the ayat. We established the principality right here. This is a principle of science. Okay. And this ayat actually is a principle that is established in Islamic law, right? To actually use science. Okay? Because this is actually about science, right? So we know that in Islam, ayat means a sign or a proof that leads to something else, right? So Allah says he will show them the ayats. Soon we shall show. Now, why am I pointing this out? Because child psychology is a science. You see what I'm saying? Maturity is a science. Psychology is a science. Being, when you come to the age of puberty and then you having, maturity, that takes having science. We see clearly inside the Quran, Allah mentions about the science of what he would show. Soon we will show them our signs in the horizons and in themselves. Right? In themselves. Until it becomes clear to them that it is the truth, haq. See? Right? Is it not sufficient concerning your Lord that he is a witness over all things? All right. It is an actuality. Now you're understanding why Imam Abu Hanifa also, he understood about, and you're about to see inside the Quran where this differs between when you reach puberty versus when you have maturity and when you come into your full strength. It's right there inside the Quran. So that is what Imam Abu Hanifa and his likes, not just Imam Abu Hanifa, but and his likes, or like even my likes, you see what I'm saying? How I am, how we determine that what maturity is. right? So therefore, when you take all that into consideration and then you read a hadith, you know that that hadith is went against certain principles. And what is the principles? Oh, let's go look at these principles. What is the principle of that? Oh, let me get this principles. Okay, where is the principles at real quick? Here it is. Remember we was talking about this, right? In this evaluation process, scholars hadith, two things in mind. Firstly, the content of the hadith. Hold up. Okay. Secondly, the isnad or ribiyat, which is reporting sentence, to check the content of the topic. They devise the following principles. These principles, brothers and sisters, come from the Quran itself. Look at, we read an ayat about intellect already. We just read an ayat about nature. And those two ayats about intellect and nature, Allah says He showed them the signs in the heavens and in yourself. That's principle number 2. Okay. With Islamic law and intellect. Those who do not use their reasoning, those who don't use their aql, are the dumbest beasts in the sight of Allah. Okay. That's principle number 1 for Islamic law. Okay. And those are mentioned in the Quran. So if you're not with those two, then it goes against the Quran itself. Is it contrary to true history? I just showed you some true history about the school developed, right? And then is it against some event or common sense? So does it make sense that a person, will marry a 6-year-old, 9-year-old, 11-year-old, and you're saying that he's connected to the all-knowing, the all-wise? Okay. So those are principles right there for hadith. So if the hadith don't match up to this, it's gone. It's out of there. Right? So, all right. So young Pharaoh doing the thing where he just, here's something else also from Islamic law about young women and consent. Oh, we also spoke about consent, right? It's consent. You have to be mature in order to consent. All right. But the following tradition of the Prophet, narrated by Ibn Abbas, also supports the view. And has more authority over him or herself than his or her guardian. What is this topic? This is about father cannot marry his daughter off without her consent. You see, she don't want to marry the man. She don't want to marry the guy, right? But nowadays we see in some Muslim places, they do what? They just marry their daughters off. And she don't want to consent, right? Is one who is without a mate, man or woman, a maiden, young lady, or thiyab, young boy. The scholars have also put forth a rational argument and observed that reason dictates that every human being has total liberty regarding his own affairs, and no other person, regardless of his being near or distant relative, has any authority over him. Let it go in. I wasn't even trying to quote this one right now. It's out of order, but that's all right. It'll coincide. Qiyam has well observed when he says, how can it be legitimate for a father to marry his daughter without her consent to anyone of his choice, while she disproves such a marriage and regards him as the most detestable person in the world, and yet he should forcibly marry her and hand her over as a captive to him? The Quran, and then do not prevent them from marrying their husbands. Okay, so that basically is talking about the aspect of consent. A person has consent in marriage is a contractual agreement of consent. Of course, we know you have to be mature to do that, but nevertheless, your father, your mother can't marry you off to nobody or say that, hey, you're going to go with this person. But you see that a lot. All right. So we just established a little bit about consent. Talking about consent. All right. So I've been saying a lot of Sunni stuff. So what I'm going to do is we're going to go to what we just saw Imam Buni for the Hanafi methodology say that the age was 18. Imam Abu Hanifa said it was 18, right? Maturity. Now, okay, these are the different methods. All right, towards the hadith of different schools take. All right, let's go over here. Okay, this is about science, showing signs in the universe. We just show them a sign of the universe in our own selves. Okay, that's about nature. We see it right here. So that's not my interpretation, although that would be okay. It don't matter if it's my understanding, but just so you know, it's not okay. This is from the alislam.org. Now this one, the other sites I got from, like a Sharia symbol, that's a Sunni site. This is alislam.org. This is a Shia site. Same verses. Okay. And so it even says right here, signs of horizon, ayat afaqi, right? Now we see include creation of the sun, moon, stars with the order governing them, creation of all kinds of animals, plants. So basically it's talking about science, talking about nature. Okay. See that? Now this would go into, if Allah is showing you a sign within yourself, within your nafs, okay, that would be your psychological makeup, and physically, your physical makeup and your psychological makeup. All right. Those are called the ayats of Allah, subhanahu wa ta'ala. Right. So we have to go with that. We have to do Islam too. We have to submit to that as Muslims. Right. So modern psychology even says that, well, we'll get into development psychology. I just wanted to establish the premise that the Quran does mention that Allah is going to show you his signs in the heavens and within yourself. Is it not sufficient concerning your Lord that he is over your witness of all things? Okay. So you have to take even nature into consideration. That's Islamic. You have to take psychology into consideration. That's Islamic. You have to take science into consideration. That's Islamic. Islam is not just you reading the Quran and you reading the Hadith. It's a lot more than that. There's sciences to this. Right? So when you get those proofs, you must go by them proofs. All right. So, all right, let's go to maturity. So, we're going to start with the orphans. Okay, orphans who are children. Right? You see where it says right there, sound judgment, which means maturity. And test the orphans and their abilities until they reach marriageable age. Then if you perceive sound judgment, release their property to them. See, this is where people like Imam Abu Hanifa got the understanding that a child, just because she or he reaches their puberty, it doesn't mean that they have sound judgment yet. It doesn't mean that they're mature yet, right? They're not mature. They don't have sound judgment. And then sound judgment also goes with property, finances, being able to control your finances, right? If you don't even have the capability of controlling your finances in a maturely, then definitely. Now watch this breakdown. See this? What does it say right there? Mary and Aisha is brung up. You see that? This guy don't know what he's talking about. This young fellow don't know what he's talking about. No responsibility can be given to children until they reach the age of sound judgment according to the community they live in. So every community has a standard of what sound judgment is, what maturity is. Every state has a determination what sound judgment is. It's not just you reaching puberty, right? So some states you can get married when you're 16, 18, 17. It all depends on the psychological makeup of the individual and also the customs, right? Like over here, customs coincide with the psychological makeup, right? But Even if we didn't have none of that, let's say we had none of that, we still got the Quran. And the Quran tells us the distinction and the difference. Okay. No response given to children until they reach the age of sound judgment according to community living. Hence, it is obvious from Quranic verse, this should not be treated as a gray area, but be made clear as black and white. It is against the nature of the Quran to marry young girls. The marrying of Aisha 69 is highly unlikely for the Prophet to commit. And therefore, according to the verse of the Quran, the hadith on Aisha's age needs to be fully rejected by the entire Muslim nations, and this darkish, ignorant practice should be eliminated from every nook and corner of the urban and rural areas. It's a crime against nature, the Quran against humanity, therefore a heavy penalty must be introduced. Okay, so then they go on to talk about the bad for the individuals who are the past, who have minted this fabricated information into the narrations of hadith, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So plenty of us do not accept the 6 and 9 narration, and the Quran does not even accept the 6 and 9 narration. Okay, continue. And we're going to go a little deeper. So that same narration right there, there's a word called ashud. Now, this word ashud is throughout the Quran. And this word ashud, when it talks about sound judgment or maturity, you will find in other verses of the Quran mean just that. Let's go. Let's see some of these. Okay. Let's look at that. They translate maturity. They translate it as sound judgment. And this one translation translates it as the age of independence. Okay. And do not come near. That's the surahs right there. Ayat. And do not come near the money of the orphan except for what is best. Until he reaches his independence, and give honestly full measure and weigh equity. We do not burden a soul except, or a person, because it was nafs, except with that what it can bear. If you speak, then be just, even if against a relative, and regarding the pledges made to Allah, you shall observe them. This he has adjoined you that you may remember. The whole point of this ayat that I'm focused on is the word reaches his independence. Now, anybody that knows Islam, knows the Quran, knows that when they use the word for he, it includes both men and women. Okay? Everybody knows that. So just in case somebody don't know. Again, another ayat using the same word. Surah 12, ayat 22. And when he reached his independence or maturity or sound reason, whichever translation you want to give it, we gave him judgment and knowledge. So now we see inside the Quran, judgment, hikmah, and ilm, knowledge, is part of maturity. It's part of maturity. It is so that we reward the good doers, right? Or the muslim. Okay. But we see when he reached his age of independence or ashudahu, right? Or maturity or sound reasoning, we gave him judgment and knowledge. So judgment and knowledge automatically goes the faculty of being able to have good judgment and the faculty of being able to have thorough knowledge or understanding goes hand in hand with the age of maturity inside the Quran. Another one. Now, this is the verse that we just got to remember. See, these are all the verses lined up to say the same thing, the same word. That's what I got. The same word. I lined up the word maturity, sound reasoning, and it gave me all these different ayats where it says the same word in each one of these, meaning maturity. This is the one that we was reading before. And do not come near the orphan money except that which is best until he reaches independence and fulfill the pledge, for the pledge brings great, right? So we see there's the orphans who's young, who's little, and then they reach a certain age, and that's called independence or mature, or, you know, whichever one of the translations you want to give. Hold up. You're not done with that yet. And Surah 18:82. We all know about that. When Kidder was going around, right? And he had to repair the orphan's wall. Remember that? It says something very key in there. It says, and as for the wall, it belonged to 2 orphan boys. So this is before they reach puberty, right? In the city. Hold up. And underneath it was a treasure for them. Oh, we got before puberty, and we got wealth being mentioned. Treasures, wealth. And their father was a good man. So your Lord wanted that they reach their independence. They reached the age of what? Independence. The age of what? Maturity. And bring out their treasure. So you see that? How even in this story right here, the concept of puberty, sound reasoning, and wealth being given on to the orphans. Right? And it says what? It says, what's going on? Okay. They reach their independence and bring out their treasure as a mercy from your Lord, and none of what I have done of my own accord. This is the meaning of what you cannot have patience. All right, let's continue. Okay, now we get into the creation verse. Surah 4:6-7. We just got through with this one. Now we're going this one. He is the one who has created you from dust and from a seed. Here we go to stages. Then from an embryo. Then he brings you out as a child, or as babe, some translate. Then he lets you reach the age of maturity. Right? So this is the same word. You see? This is the same word. These are the different stages. Okay. And here's the other one. We have enjoined on man to do good to his parents. His mother bore him with hardship. This eye right here. Gave birth to him in hardship, and his bearing and weaning lasts 30 months. Watch this. Pay attention. So that when he has reached his independence, he reached his maturity. Then it distinguishes. Watch this. And he has reached 40 years. So now that's letting you know that your sign of maturity and your age of maturity is before you even hit 40. Okay? Before you hit 40 years old, you're mature. You see that? He says, my Lord, direct me to appreciate the blessings you have bestowed upon me and upon my parents, and do good work that pleases me. Pleases you, and let my progeny be righteous. I have repented to you, and I'm of those who have submitted. So the Quran distinguishes. It gives you step by step. Right? So your birth, the embryo, you're coming out, you're a child. Then you reach a certain age where you become mature. Your maturity. How do you know a person mature? They have the ability of knowledge. They have the ability of sound judgment. They have the ability to handle finances. That is the age of maturity. And whenever you see those signs, now in your culture, what is the age that the person reaches when they are able to do that? Definitely, it's not at no a 6-year-old. Definitely, it's not at no 9-year-old. We see inside the Quran where it talked about Allah will show his ayats, his signs in the horizons, meaning in the heavens and within ourselves. So that goes to psychology, child development. People should study up on child development, right? And it also went into these are all the different. Now, how did I come to all these different things? was that these are the considerations actually that Imam Abu Hanifa went across. See, I didn't just come up here and just put this in. Imam Abu Hanifa and others have come up on these ayats. These are the ayats that was utilized to determine the maturity. And this is how they also knew that a 6-year-old and a 9-year-old cannot be mature enough to meet all these requirements. There's no way that you have sound knowledge. There's no way that you have wisdom, hikmah, okay? The same word that's described King Nabi Sulaiman alayhi salam had, the same word that Khidr had, that they had hikmah. Allah bless them with hikmah. So, no way. All right. So, let's continue. And this one, just let this one is, I got this one from a Shia site because I did say I'm gonna start putting other stuff up there. Then, you know, and it said the same thing, right? So the reason why I'm bringing this type of method, I use Shia sources, Ibadi sources, Sunni sources. Sometimes I'll point it out, sometimes I won't. You'll know that they are consistent and coincide together. The reason why I'm doing that is because the attack is against the Quran, and the attack is against the Sunnah of the Prophet, and the attack is against Islam. They didn't specify. See, so I'm throwing everything. You see, I'm going into everything. I'm going to everything that coincide with itself. I'm hitting them back. You see what I'm saying? Because, let's see. Same ayat. Test the orphans until they attain marriageable age. Then if you find in them maturity of intellect. That's a good translation. And test the orphans until they attain marriageable age. Then if you find the maturity of intellect, make over to them their property. You see that? And do not consume it extravagantly and hastily, lest they attain to full age. And whoever is rich, let him abstain altogether. Whosoever is poor, let him eat reasonably. So, when questioned, when the Imam was questioned about this ayah, Imam Jafar Sadiq. Now, this is something that people need to understand. Imam Abu Hanifa and Imam Malik, of the two other methods I just read, Imam Jafar Sadiq was one of their teachers. That's why I also put this up in here. Imam Jafar Sadiq belonged to the school of Medina. He was a teacher in Medina, and Imam Malik learned under him. He learned the principles of intellect from him. He learned the principles of some of the things that you see Imam Malik put into his methods, as well as Imam Abu Hanifa. That's why Imam Abu Hanifa came with the aspect of rationality. Imam Jafar Sadiq, who taught both of them, they weren't their only teachers, but he taught them the aspect of rationality and the aspect of, the intellect, okay, and Islamic law, right? And then it was up to them. Then they took it and they did with it what they saw fit to do with it. They also had other teachers too, like I said though. So I mean, when we go down right here, make of the property. Okay. So to that is said, oh, maybe I gotta grab that phone because he's acting up real quick. So, all right. It has been reported that Imam Sadiq, having been asked about the words of Allah, mighty majestic in 646, then if you find in them maturity of intellect. Okay, hold on. Make over to them their property. He said, man, subhanAllah. The maturity of intellect, preservation of wealth. So Imam Sadiq saying the maturity intellect, hand in hand, the preservation of wealth coincides. You have to be financially able to preserve your wealth in order for you to be considered mature. That's part of intellect. Right? So, A 69-year-old cannot even do that. A 69-year-old still going through, they're about to go through a whole bunch of psychological changes, identify with different people. They haven't even found themselves yet. So there's no way they have sound knowledge, and there's no way they have mature intellect, and there's no way that they've reached the age of full strength. There's no way. And the Quran determines all those words together as being a person of intelligence. So when you translate that into Islamic law and you take that into the sciences, like I said in this ayah, Allah will show you signs in the universe. That's Islamic. And in their own selves. That's psychology. That's your physical growth. Stage by stage. Until it becomes manifested as the truth. Okay? So this is why some people rejected the 6 and 9 narration. There's no way the Prophet ﷺ did that. The Prophet ﷺ, whom the Quran was revealed to, and all these ayahs we're reading about, and the context of maturity that it's talking about, there is no way the Prophet ﷺ married 6 and 9. All right, so for those who want to know, that was from his text law book, Malik and Medina, Islamic legal reasoning in the formative period. Okay. That's not from that, but that shows principles. And right. So again, there's different methodologies. Each school, each method went different towards I emphasize it again. So from from the ashariasymbol.com. That's the Ashari theology among Ahlus-Sunnah. They published this on their website about the methodologies, the different terminologies in grading hadith, and they vary according to which method one follows. So young Pharaoh or the Christian missionaries or the Comedics, anti-Islam Comedics, not all Comedics, anti-Islam Comedics, all of them who use this 6 and 9 narration, they're very ignorant. They don't know what they're talking about. Because you can't force one type of method on all Muslims. You just can't do that. And so the aim is just for them to just try to get rid of Islam. So we're going to go to some videos. I'll come back and break some other things down, inshallah. I think there's enough. I just want to go off of one statement of young Pharaoh. Okay. One statement where he said Islamic scholarship agrees. Islamic scholars say, that, they agree with the 6 and 9 narration. That's just not true. I showed you Imam Abu Hanifa, who is the founder of the first Sunni school, clearly went against that. And the hadiths that Bukhari put in his book that says 6 and 9, those had been rejected way before Bukhari had assembled his book. Okay. So, Malikis do not accept hadith that are sahih that clash with the practice and habits of Medina at the time of Imam Malik. Because nowadays they not in Medina, the prophet city today, that's not following the ways of the school of Medina. That's more of the Hanbali and Salafi school has taken that over, with the Saudi family taking over, right? So you can't go there. You can't use Saudi Arabia. You're talking about this right here. All right. Hanafis do not take Sahih Hadith if they clash with Quran or rationality. And I just showed you what it means on one level, what rationality means. I used the rational principles. When I went through the different ayahs, I showed you the maturity, things like that, customary practices, locality, and the Quran gives you the justification because there's ayahs about intellect, using your intellect or reasoning. There's ayahs that talking about Allah will show you his sciences. You know what I'm saying? So you use science, use psychology to determine certain things. That's the permission from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So I'm more of that type of understanding. And of course you use hadith that coincide with all that, right? It says, Shafi will take them if they meet his 5 conditions. So Shafi, he came up with 5 principles of being able to accept a hadith, right? Which are similar to those of Bukhari. All right. So the Shafi school more agrees with the Bukhari type of understanding. And I'm not using a blanket statement there either, because there's individuals in every method that tend to go their own route through their own investigation, which is acceptable. Okay. There is no blind following, and there is not one method. And so people like, David Wood or anti-Islamist period that try to push up on us on the 6 and 9 thing. And just because a book say 6 and 9, we have to accept it because some narrate. That's not how that go. That's not that we have different methods towards this. And it's early Islamic methods. Malik, the school of Maliki. Okay. That's the inhabitants of Medina, the prophet city where the Prophet ﷺ had the hijrah to and established the Sunnah. Okay. So if you don't see the inhabitants of the Sunnah themselves marrying 6-year-olds and 9-year-olds, you can go look into the book of Imam Malik's Muwatta. He wrote the Hadith Muwatta. Okay. You don't find the Sahaba marrying 69-year-olds as a practice or Sunnah of the Prophet. You don't find the family of the Prophet Muhammad marrying 6 and 9-year-olds as part of the Sunnah or practice of the Prophet. So clearly, what was recorded later, that ain't going with the earlier community. Unless people are saying that, all the Sahaba and the family of the Prophet Muhammad and all didn't follow the Sunnah of the Prophet. I'm just saying. I'm just saying. Okay. Okay. Again, we read that being Sahih. Okay. Hadith masters such as Ibn Hajar, historians such as Imam Tabari, also Hadith master. They follow different methods, of course. So when you read these scholars, we need to start understanding that each of these scholars have different methods, right? That each person, even if you're not a scholar, you have different methods when you're a student of knowledge, right? So what is Sahih to another person may not be Sahih to you. And we have to start understanding that and bringing that concept more to the forefront to those of us that don't know. Okay, so Sahih, what does that mean? Because we've been told the whole time Sahih means the Prophet said it. But in actuality, that's only one methodology. That's one school that said that. Not even a school that said that. It's one opinion. It's actually an opinion. You can never find a hadith itself or the Quran itself that says Sahih means the Prophet said it. You want to know why? Because that terminology was developed later for hadith sciences. That's why. So the Salaf, the Sahaba, they never used the word, this is a Sahih. I never read where they said that. But anyway, Sahih, what does it mean? So it says, but they knew and articulate clearly that being Sahih did not mean true, but merely that the chain was correct. The content and the meaning could well be rejected. So yes, that's why I told, now it says right here, as it is in this case, but a person nowadays should be misled. Now, as you know, this person is more of they're not, obviously it's part of the Salafi movement, but they're telling you what Sahih means though. Should be misled by the Salafi movement could be incited as Ibn Taymiyyah was to mistake its Sahih status for its acceptability. And so to believe that the Prophet, now this was about, now reason why I cut this part off was because the subject was about magic, and some Muslims have a hadith. They say, the chain is Sahih. So therefore it's correct. So therefore it's true that the Prophet was struck by magic. And so they say it's a Sahih hadith. Meaning the Salafi movement say that, right? But the other methods of Islamic law, the other methods that they go against that. Okay. They say that's fabricated. Is weak. And even if it was Sahih in the chain, it's still rejected by its text, because the Quran very clearly in 113, Surah 113, Surah 114, and also the accusations of certain ayats of the Quran shows that the pagans used to accuse the prophet of being struck with magic. So the Quran is rejected that the Prophet ﷺ was overcome by magic. So therefore that hadith that you're saying is sahih is rejected. That's one method, right? But some people still accept that hadith as authentic. So you got some that say, yes, sahih, the chain and narrators are there, but it's rejected. And you got some who say, no, that's a weak hadith. It's rejected just because it's just straight up weak all the way around. And you got some that say, oh, it's sahih and the chain and narrators. That means it's true. So therefore the prophet was struck by magic. SubhanAllah. So again, when you hear the word sahih meaning what? Ask the person. Are you saying it's sahih in the narration? Are you saying it's sahih in the text, the words that are being said? Are you, what are you saying sahih about? Because different schools, different methods, term the word different. Just, so y'all can, do some research on that. Inshallah. All right, let's get back to young Pharaoh. Let's hear his diatribe, and then I'll put some scholars up there that will say some of the similar things that I've been saying. All right, and we'll rebuttal young Pharaoh. All right, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum. I believe we are right here. Okay. So let's see. Now, with all that I just showed you, I want you to be able to see the people that he chooses to speak on here. I want you to see what school or what method they use or something like that. Also try to see how ignorant young Pharaoh is of what I just showed you. Right? All right. So again, he cussed. So if you ain't trying to hear that, you might not want to.
They don't believe like that no more. Or they don't teach that, da-da-da-da-da. Yes, the fuck they do.
Okay, hold on.
This is from 2008.
Okay, hold on. Also, the brothers and sisters out there that sitting there saying, like young Pharaoh brung up, when he brung this up, some brothers are saying, oh, well, the prophet did that back then, but we don't do it now. Brothers that argue like that, or sisters that argue like that, that lets you know that they have been taught from the Alo Hadith. You shouldn't say Salafi because, there's difference among, but Alo Hadith stance, that narration is authentic. So they have to reconcile and say, well, that's authentic, or Sahih, which they're not really defining what Sahih they're talking about, but that's Sahih. So that was in the time of the prophet. When, actuality, if you look in the time of the prophet, none of the companions did that. From my knowledge. Okay. So, but let's hear what he got to say.
Okay. Now let's go.
So he chooses. So what does he choose? He chooses a Saudi scholar.
Goddamn translation, my damn self. Let's go. He said, first we are talking about the marriage contract itself. And we're going to be going into the book in regards to certain chapters in the Quran and Islam, which deals with marriage contracts, where I'm going to be showing you where they are okaying pedophilia and child and intercourse between a grown man and a little boy. But right now, we're going to let this nigga confirm out of his mouth that they practice pedophilia. So now when I get to going in on this shit, can't nobody say or act like this is not confirmed by Islamic members its own self. Now let's go. Again, we historical scholarship, but Islamic scholarship is their little religional code, okay, that they got going on over there in the Islamic world. They believe, and it's confirmed by the Quran, that Muhammad married his wife, Aisha, at 9 years the fuck old.
Stop.
9 fucking years old. Stop. Now niggas try to justify this to say, oh, he didn't have sex with her till she was 11. Nigga, you a grown ass man. Now to justify.
See that? You see that? Islamic scholarship is what he said. Now I just showed you. So Islamic scholarship say that. right? But in any case, all right.
For the sexual intercourse between Muhammad and Aisha is the same justification that all pedophiles and weirdos use, which is backed up by the Torah, the Bible, and once again, since we're on the topic, the Quran. And that's the false science of a woman being ready for sexual intercourse when she gets her period. That's not a fact. Your menstruational cycle is not totally activational towards the chemicals that need to be released in the body, which produce sexual urges and tendencies. Okay? Puberty takes place and sexual chemistry takes place in the body when kisspeptin is released in the brain. Okay?
I'm gonna do a video on that too, because he's wrong on that. When kisspeptin is released in the brain, that actually does stimulate the person from puberty. It changes the person from being before they were in puberty into puberty, which does give them some type of sexual feelings. You know what I'm saying? That doesn't mean they're ready. That doesn't mean they're ready. That doesn't mean they're mature enough psychologically to engage, right? But physically, kisspeptin does indeed actually make you, that's what actually is released in your brain to actually make you have them sexual feelings that you have. So he's wrong on that. So he's quoting something so I might even come back and I will represent his argument better than what he's representing as. What he should have said is, although kisspeptin is released inside the brain and it gives the person who was not in puberty, it makes them come from puberty, right? Come into puberty, and it gives them, kisspeptin actually does give them some sort of sexual feelings. It still does not mean that they are mature psychologically in the brain to make a sound judgment for marriage or sexual intercourse, right? So that's what he should have said. But anyway, we're gonna let him go with his thing with her right there.
A woman getting on her period is not totally invoking sexual psychological states of existence. You can get on your period at 9 years old. That does not mean you're thinking about having sex. That does not mean you get aroused. That does not mean psychologically you understand and digest the subjects and criteria of sex and eroticism to where your body biochemically responds to itself, which tells you to become moist down there and activate down there for sexual penetration. The body responding to sexual.
So he's right. He's right in the sense that you're still not psychologically ready. You know what I'm saying? You have your mind. So I'm at a low time right now. So this will be part one. I'm gonna continue a part two. My phone got a charge, but I'm going to do a part two because I have a whole lot more information. All right. And I want to get, let's see, now I got to narrow this down real quick. Let me put this one scholar on then in response to his guy. And then we will, see, I got a whole lot. I got a whole lot of stuff. Okay. Let's see. We'll put this one. We'll put this one on. We'll put this one on. All right. The age Aisha. We'll put that one on. Okay. Since he want to quote people in the Middle East, we're gonna find out something quick. This is short.
So what Adil Sahi is saying is that both in the case of Aisha and in the case of the Prophet's first wife, Khadija, the age seems to be misrepresented in some of the reports about them.
Hold up. But he said, hold on.
Companions of the Prophet.
But hold up. He said Islamic scholars accept. This is what Young Pharaoh saying. Islamic scholars accept the 69 narration. They accept pedophilia, but we got this scholar right here saying different. Okay. All right. I just want to, let me go ahead and start that over again. I'll shut up now. Let them talk.
So what Adil Sahi is saying is that both in the case of Aisha and in the case of the Prophet's first wife, Khadija, the age seems to be misrepresented in some of the reports about them. And he says that this is not unusual. There are other companions of the Prophet, peace be upon him, early Muslims, who are reported to have done a certain thing when they were a certain age. But when all of the pieces are put together, it is clear that these persons' ages were not properly represented in those reports either. And more generally, he points out that people did not pay close attention to the actual dates of things. And the Arabs at the time did not have a calendar, so they would refer to an event with reference to a certain other major event. To add my own explanatory note here, people would say, for example, that this happened so many years after the year of the elephant. They're referring to the year in which the elephants were said to be marching against Mecca. To them, a major event in their memory. But to refer to somebody being born so many years after that event and so on shows a great degree of vagueness when it came to the ages of people.
And so what does he propose as Aisha's age actually being when she got
married? He proposes that she was about 18 or 20, given a number of factors. For example, an early list of Muslims who had embraced Islam from the very beginning includes Aisha. And if she is in that list, one might presume that she had some age of discretion, probably about 10 years old. And then if the Prophet, peace be upon him, continued to live in Mecca for another 10 years following that, and then Aisha was married to him, or consummated the marriage about 3 years later, then we are looking about maybe 20 years old at the time she consummated the marriage. So some other factors like this, when the pieces are put together, lead to an age of about 18 to 20 when she consummated her marriage.
Now, I just showed where Imam Abu Hanifa in the 2nd century of Islam said that maturity was 18 years old. Here we have in the modern times him saying almost nearly the same thing. See, now here's the other thing I want to put past you before my phone dies and I have to put this up. There will be a part 2, inshallah, probably tomorrow. You'll see it. Part 2. This is part 1. I want to run this by you. You see how we count time right now? That's called the Gregorian calendar. Guess what? The Arabs didn't go by the Gregorian calendar. So when we say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, that's Gregorian calendar. They didn't even count like that. So, you see, like you said, the year of the elephant, the year of the bull, you know, the year of the, that's how they count it. And on top of that, I want you to reflect on something real quick. Even our day times, see, 24 hours a day, that culture didn't go by 24 hours a day. Inside the Quran, you know what type of culture they went by, because when we fast, when's daytime? When's Fajr? Sunrise, when the sun rises, before sunrise, right, is Fajr, right? The daytime ends at sunset. Okay? So daytime ends at sunset. That's one day. Then you had the night. All right? So the counting system was completely different anyway. And Bukhari, being a Persian, you see, when he collected these traditions into Sahih, his Sahih, what he considered Sahih, you got to understand, he was part of a European, basically Persian culture or Eastern European culture that had influence from the Gregorian calendar. So the question is, who did the calculation? Who did the counting? To say Aisha was even 6 or 9 or anything like that. How did they even get that type of an age? How did they even count like that? In our Gregorian time frame. Doesn't make no sense at all. Okay? Because the culture is different. Also, you'll see inside the Quran, the Quran even mentions that the Arabs used to play with the number of months and adding certain years. So, I mean, all that taken into consideration, there's no way you know, that it's accurate that Aisha was 6 or 9 and thing. And then with all these different confusions, you know, going on, and, you know, things about, you know, time and age and all this and that, it's not sound at all. It's just not sound. So I'll tell you what, I'll do part 2 tomorrow, inshallah. I don't want this shutting off before I can save it. You know what I'm saying? So I really don't. I want to keep going. So I'm going to end this. That was 2 scholars, 3 scholars. I hope this was interesting. Inshallah, you got something from it. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Black power. And I hope Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you and your families out there. Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. Part 2, inshallah, tomorrow. Assalamu alaikum.